So I wonder if you've ever walked outside and caught your dog playing the guitar. Or I wonder if you've ever caught your dog in the middle of a prayer time or a meditation. Or maybe you came out and your dog had done a mural outside using some sort of chalk and done a big mural for you to see. Well, the humanities are really the things that separate us as humans. All the different things that we're going to study this semester are things that we are very unique to humanity. So when you ask yourself, what is the humanities? Well, it's the creative expressions of men and women around the world. Now, we used to look at just the creative expressions of what people did long ago. And what we've come to now is an understanding that you are actively part of the humanities even now. That as we continue to move forward, the humanities don't stop. We're always moving forward and creating and expressing ourselves. Now, the things that we express ourselves in are typically called disciplines. So like the given art forms that we're going to study, like literature, visual art, music, drama, dance, cinema, those are all the disciplines of the humanities. So your book is divided into about 3 parts, okay? First few chapters, the chapter 1 that we're in right now is just kind of an introduction to the humanities. Chapter 2 and 3 are going to talk a little bit more about just kind of introducing us to some ideas of the humanities. Then we'll get into the disciplines of the humanities. And the disciplines of the humanities are all of those things, again, that make us human. All those different art forms like literature and music and all of those things I listed. And so we're going to go through each one of those, and then we'll get into, at the end of the book, this thing called the themes of the humanities. Now, it's important you understand the difference in the disciplines and the themes. Themes are threads that weave in and out of all of the different disciplines. So if you hear a great poem, or if you hear a great song, they might both be about love. One of them is set to verse and music. The other may not be set to music. You may hear a movie about love, or a movie about religion, or a play about religion, or a song about religion, but all of those disciplines are infused with the different themes. So our different themes are like morality, freedom, life affirmation, religion, love, all of those at the end of our book. And so the themes are what the disciplines are infused with. Now, it's really interesting because in the humanities we find this concept of beauty. Now, beauty is really kind of a pleasing arrangement of parts. And that can be very subjective, can it? I mean, there's probably some of you that you've seen somebody here or there, or you've seen a piece of art or something, you've thought that's just beautiful. And then somebody else has been like, really? Like, what do you see in that person? Or what do you see in that piece of art? Or what do you like about that song? I don't like it at all. And so you may have some very different ideas on what beauty is. Now, the word aesthetics is an experience in the arts or in life, such as watching a sunset, which we value, not because of anything, something beyond reason. So when you're sitting and watching a West Texas sunset, you may not have to say all the words defining or all the scientific things that are going on for a sunset to sit back and just appreciate the beauty of it. So the aesthetics, the curb appeal of a sunset. That's what aesthetics basically means. So within all these different disciplines, you're going to see works of art or musical arrangements or whatever that we consider beautiful, that most people consider beautiful. Now, there may be some that may not agree that they're beautiful. So beauty is kind of a subjective term, right? So when we look at our chapters to come, we kind of learn some things from the humanities. The humanities help us do a few things. Number one, they help us become a little bit more open-minded. And so hopefully as you go through this course, you're going to see some different pieces of art especially, and this is something I think about a lot with art, that you might look at originally and think, my goodness, I don't see how somebody could appreciate that at all. But then after reading about it and kind of understanding maybe the medium that they used, or the techniques they used, or a little bit about the artist and why they did what they did, maybe the themes that they were painting about or drawing about, maybe for you, then you'll step back and say, okay, maybe that is beautiful. And so it'll make you a little bit more open-minded for some of these things. It also kind of helps us appreciate beauty. So I think when you can understand something like the Mona Lisa, that I think that for many people they look at, and sure, we can identify what that piece of art is, but if you don't really understand why art critics around the world have said it's one of the greatest pieces of art in history, if you're like me and you just see it and you're kind of like, well, that looks like a kind of an average looking lady, then you probably don't recognize the technique. I remember visiting a art gallery with a good friend, and he was an artist. I mean, my friend Jordan was just a great artist, and I'd been to this art gallery before, and I kind of just walked through it. But when I walked through it with Jordan, he walked through all the different techniques. And so there I was in Spain at the Prado, and we were looking at all of these art pieces, and he was explaining the different techniques and the shading that the different artists did and why they were a genius. And all of a sudden, I was really able to appreciate the beauty in that art. Or if you've ever listened to a song with someone that's a musician, and they're talking about all the finer parts of how they did the arrangement of chords or the notes, then you might be able to appreciate the beauty of that song a little better than before you learned about that. We also look at humanities as this thing called a shining beacon. A shining beacon meaning it's kind of crying out to us. It gives us some guidance because it gives us a deeper sense of our past. We understand our past, and we understand this thing called context a lot better when we are looking at some of these different pieces. So every piece of art, every piece of music has a context. A context is kind of the setting of what the artist was doing. And so think about context real quick. Just imagine Edward from, what's he in? That vampire show, Twilight. Yeah, some of you knew exactly what I was talking about. Let's take Edward, and instead of being in that dry, dark Forks in Washington, let's move him to Miami Beach. And so then you've got him out on the sun, and he's glistening in the sunlight. Well, the vampire whole thing is kind of ruined a little bit on Miami Beach, right? And so the context of that story has a lot to do with why we appreciate it. You'll see some of these art pieces and you'll hear about their context, and it should give you a different appreciation for those works of art. So I hope that as you dive into all these chapters, one of the things I hope that you'll become is a little bit more like a man that's featured at the end of our chapter 1, which is Leonardo da Vinci. We called him a Renaissance man, or something even called an infinite man. He was into all sorts of different disciplines, and he mastered so many different disciplines, and he was always looking to advance and move forward in new disciplines. I would encourage you, if you have time, to watch some biographies on Leonardo da Vinci. You can get on YouTube and look at some short little biographies about him. But it's amazing to see just what a brilliant genius he was in all the different disciplines. And so he kind of gives us a picture of this thing called the infinite person, the person that never stops learning, never starts digging within themselves to find more. My hope that in this chapter you'll realize that maybe you have a need to become more infinite like Da Vinci. And throughout this course, I want to give you some opportunities to dig a little bit deeper inside of you and become that infinite person. So enjoy chapter 1, and we will check in with you later down the road.